The history of Poland began in year 966 with a man named Mieszko Piast, ruler of the largest Polish tribe. Seeing the inevitable march of Christianity, manifested in German Drang nach Osten, march to the east, that had already swallowed many Slavic tribes of northeastern Germany, Mieszko, like many before and after him, decided to abandon the gods of his forefathers and adopt Catholicism, cementing an alliance between Poland and Bohemia, fate far more preferable than becoming yet another province of the Holy Roman Empire. In 1025, Mieszko's son Bolesław was officially crowned as first king of Poland, formally placing the country on the map of Europe as the forefront of Christianity. For over 300 years, Piast dynasty guided Poland towards greatness until year 1370, when the last king, Kazimierz III, the only ruler in Polish history to be called the Great, died without an heir. In this moment, first crack appeared. To prevent civil war, Louis of Anjou, King of Hungary and nephew of Kazimierz the Great, took Polish crown for himself. But Louis, who like his uncle was the only Hungarian king nicknamed the Great, was not really interested in ruling his new realm. In fact, his neglectful rule empowered nobility so much that Louis had to make concessions to ensure his daughter would inherit the throne. In a town called Koszyce, the king agreed to greatly reduce the tax that Polish nobility paid to the crown, exempted nobles from constructing and maintaining fortifications, and promised to reimburse any knight who participated in any military campaign on foreign soil. These concessions, dubbed privileges by Polish nobility, proved to be a very dangerous precedent, one that would cost the nation greatly in the coming ages. But for Louis, they helped him achieve his short-term goal, that was placing his daughter Jadwiga on the throne. But when Louis passed away in 1382, Polish nobles, aware of the fact that Jadwiga's planned marriage would put their country into Habsburg hands, decided to crown her, not as the queen but as a king, until a more preferable solution was found. That solution came from a rather unexpected place: Lithuania, last pagan country in Europe standing defiantly against the might of the cross that surrounded them. Seeing an opportunity to defend his country from methodical onslaught by Teutonic Order, Władysław Jagiellon, Grand Duke of Lithuania, converted to Christianity and married Jadwiga in 1386, creating a union between two nations. But even that did not stop crusading Germans, and constant wars finally culminated on July 15, 1410, during Battle of Grunwald, known today as the largest battle of the Middle Ages. And although Polish-Lithuanian forces won a decisive victory that day, it was not properly used. Instead of dealing the broken knights a finishing blow, King Władysław offered a relatively moderate peace offer, a mistake that would plague Poland for many generations. But even such half victory was enough to ensure Jagiellon's dynasty place on the throne of Poland. But Jagiellon rule proved to be a mixed blessing, as many terrible decisions plagued the rulers of the new dynasty. In 1444, King Władysław III led an army of great many European powers, including forces of Poland, Hungary and Holy Roman Empire, to a catastrophic defeat against the Ottoman Turks at Darthmod, a battle that had cost the king his life. In 1525, after a long war, King Zygmunt the Old managed to subdue Teutonic Order, and although the knights were finally disbanded, their lands were not annexed. Instead, they were given to Zygmunt's nephew, Albrecht von Hohenzollern, and renamed as Prussia. The rule of Jagiellons was also the time when noble privileges grew from minor concessions into new sets of laws that basically placed nobility above the king. But although these privileges allowed Jagiellons to rule without much internal opposition, they were less than ideal for the country itself, as they favored only one social class. For instance, the privilege of Piotrków tied Polish peasant to his land, forbidding him any ability to move without the approval of his master. It also exempted nobility from paying import taxes, a devastating move for Polish economy, as well as once prosperous merchant classes, who suddenly found themselves as the only supply of money Polish kings could relatively easily reach through taxation. Yet the most important privilege was enacted by Alexander Jagiellon in 1505. Named nihil novi, nothing new from Latin, it stated that no new law, legislation or decision could be enacted by the king without the approval of the nobles. This meant that, for instance in a case of sudden war, no army could be mobilized until Sejm, Polish parliamentary body that included every nobleman in the country, was assembled and every member voted on the matter. And even in such dire situations, voting results were extremely varied, as many nobles who lived far away from the front lines did not want to send their working men to fight in some distant campaign. And yet, despite being extremely dangerous for the economy, as well as creating even more disparity between lower and upper classes, privileges accomplished one important thing. They kept the Jagiellon dynasty on the throne of Poland without internal conflicts or civil wars, something that was rather uncommon in Europe. And so the system, though gradually spiraling out of control, worked. But then, in 1572, last Jagiellon king died, and once again the nation was left without a monarch. But this time, things would be different. Spoiled by power gained from privileges, Polish nobility reformed the country into noble democracy, a form of elective monarchy where any man could compete for vote and be elected as new king, as long as he was Catholic and of noble birth. This idea raised many questions among the skeptics. People asked, why would some man from faraway land rule Poland well? Wouldn't he just use his new position to further his own agendas, or agendas of his motherland? And just what this man have to do to convince nobles, ever hungry for more power and wealth, to vote for him? But people asking those questions were few, and in 1573, on the fields near Warsaw, first elective king was crowned, starting a new era for Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. His name was Henry de Valois, and his rule was supposed to bring Poland and France closer. But Henry's rule only lasted for a year. Upon hearing of his brother's death, new Polish king, now first in line to the throne of France, escaped Poland in the middle of the night, leaving the country crownless once again. He was replaced by Stefan Batory, uncle of infamous Elizabeth Batory, whose rule was far more competent. Batory's most notable act was creation of the famed winged hussars, a formation so fierce that many mercenary companies hired by Poland's enemies specifically stated in their contracts that they would not face dreaded hussars on the field. The formation was at the forefront of every military campaign, with the greatest accomplishment being the famed Battle of Kłuszyno in 1610, where 5,000 hussars decimated and routed combined Swedish-Russian force numbering over 35,000 men. However, kings like Batory were too few to make a difference, as the nobility were unwilling to elect wise and powerful kings in fear of losing their privileged positions. And so, 17th century for Poland was a time of weak kings, their poor decisions, and more internal chaos as nobility practically became kings unto themselves. It was Poland's own Jan Sobieski, elected in 1674, who broke this pattern. Brave and bold, King Jan worked tirelessly to improve Poland's diplomatic and political position in Europe, but it was his military campaigns that truly brought his country glory. Most notable was his war against the Ottoman Turks. In 1683, forces of Ottoman Empire attacked Austria, and on July 7th arrived at the gates of Vienna virtually unopposed. Upon hearing the news, King Jan gathered about 70,000 men and marched fast to relieve the siege. He arrived at Vienna on September 11th, and led the greatest cavalry charge in human history against the enemy that outnumbered him 2-1. Still, the devastating impact of Hussar charge broke Ottoman lines, and they were soon routed from the field and from Austria itself. For his efforts, Sobieski was named Saviour of Vienna, but for him, and for Poland itself, it was a last charge. As the king grew older and weaker, Poland's stability deteriorated even more. A new parliamentary device, called liberum veto, which stated that any noble could forcibly end same session in progress and nullify any law that was already passed during that session, practically deadlocked Polish internal politics. Liberum veto was abused so much that in 1688 Sejm was disbanded before it even began. Then, in 1696, King Jan Sobieski died, and in his place, a year later, came August von Wettin, nicknamed the Strong, for he was known for bending horseshoes with his bare hands. An unlikely candidate, August claimed the throne thanks to bribes and outright threats, as he convinced Russian Tsar, Piotr the Great, to place an army on Polish border to ensure no one would oppose him. This was too much for people of the Commonwealth. Under the rule of King August, unrest among lower and middle classes reached its boiling point. When first riots began, the government found itself struggling trying to control the situation. Locally, many nobles organized armed response, and many rioters were captured or executed. But it was already too late. Generations of mistreatment were suddenly vented by mobs of angry, half-starved people who had nothing left to lose. Soon, rumors began circulating. Rumors of a nationwide rebellion, an uprising that would see the king deposed, monarchy overthrown, and heads of nobility planted atop the spears.